Hello, everyone. It is Maven Myra. Hold on, got two things going at once. Listen, um, I was just telling Nina, it's been a busy Thursday. I'm happy tomorrow's Friday, so we can kind of slow this thing down a little bit, get a little bit of weekend love, um, and go from there. Nina, can you hear me?
I'm getting a little echo.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Can you? What about now?
No, not.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
Hold on, I still hear it. I think I still hear it. Nope,
Oh,
it's gone. It's
it's
gone.
gone. Okay. No, it's
Mhm.
back. Hold on. Hold on,
Is
y'all.
it me?
I don't know. I
Let
don't
me
hear
see.
it on my end now. No. Ladies, y'all drop in the chat and let us know if you guys are hearing an echo. Hey, from Texas City.
I see
Thank you
Marsha
for
and
joining
Eloise.
us. Hey, Marcia. Marcia says she can't make it. Marcia, the replay will be right here on my channel. You can get all the love for as many times as you need on the replay. We will be here for you. So listen, I'm happy that Dr. Nina is, she said, okay, she's not hearing the echo. Okay. Is joining us today. She is a wonderful friend of mine. And we were just chatting before we got started that we love doing things with each other because we roll with it, we make it happen. Um, we it's easy for us to engage in conversation. So I hit her up a couple weeks ago about this topic of hyper independence that I wanted to chat about, and I knew she would be the perfect person to talk about this, from her journey that she's been through. And she is my first guest on Talkin That Maventalk. So I did the first three or so. So you guys that didn't know me could get to know me a little bit. And now Dr. Nina is my first guest, which I'm super excited about all the time. Now, here's what I want y'all to do. Dr. Nina did not even know that I was going to do this, but I'm going to give her a huge, a huge shout out of love. She is
Oh,
now officially Professor Dr.
yes.
Listen, made full professorship at the beautiful age of 30-ish, which is
Yes.
really unprecedented. Listen, I'm giving y'all the details because it's not a small thing. This is a big deal. And so I want to celebrate her. She knows I'm super proud of her, but just wanted to share that with my community as well. Listen, don't you start no tears, okay? We're not going to do that.
You know I do it too. You know I'll do it.
We're not going to do that today. Hey, Mr. Harness, look, her
Hey,
other
Mr.
hand,
Shaw and Mr.
my other
Harness.
hand. Listen, all the brothers are in the room today joining us. We got a little love from Mr. Harness. He said, "What's up, y'all?" Got
What's up,
my husband,
y'all?
Mr. Shaw. He's sending us. Listen, the applauding hands. We know we're doing all right when the brothers join us.
We got
Okay.
the husbands in here.
Listen, Nina,
And we
turn
got
your
more.
volume up just a little bit.
Okay. Can you hear me a little better now?
Yeah, a little bit better now.
I figured out what the echo was. I'm sorry, y'all. I had two windows open.
Oh, well, that's all right. She was doubling down on the action, doubling down on the action. So listen, let's jump into this topic, and here's why I wanted to talk about hyper independence. After I read what it was, and I actually want to put that on the screen. Hyper independence is when you choose to be independent of everyone. This is
Mhm.
not my definition. This is what the people said over on the dictionary page. Independent of everyone, even though, that's the caveat, even though it may negatively affect you. Now, when I came across this word and started thinking about this a couple weeks ago, what caught my attention is how many people are probably calling it just, I'm an independent woman, and not realizing their hyper independence. Again, you will not hear Nina and I say that we are against independent women.
No.
It's a lie. If anybody say it, it's not the truth. Okay. But what we're talking about is hyper independence. And look, here's a definition that goes even a little bit deeper. hyper independence can often be a trauma response to past experiences.
Oof.
Past experiences. So, with that said, Nina, let's talk about the everyday notion around hyper independence. How do we think women, specifically my audience is predominantly women, are getting that confused with simply being independent, which I think you should be. And here's something that I've talked to when I'm in my workout sessions. My trainer and I talk about everything on the planet. And here's something that I observe. This is the opinion of Myra, that coming up, so I'm early 50s, the women in my life I saw um, didn't have as many opportunities to be independent. Okay. Lack of education, lack of opportunity, women just not being allowed to do a lot of things, as many things as we get to do now, right? And when our those women raised us, if you look at my generation, there's a tendency to swing the pendulum all the way to the other side and potentially be hyper independent, because it's the notion of I'm not going to depend on nobody. I don't need nobody. Just the nobodiness. We about that. So finding, again, one of my favorite words, the balance of that. I've said a mouthful. I want you to chime in on what you want to share about this hyper independent versus dependent versus fear, all of those things. And first, let me let you introduce yourself. I was so excited about your professorship, but listen, give a little bit about yourself to the people, because you're not just a professor.
Well, I am Nina Ellis Hervey. First off, Myra is a trusted business partner and friend and mentor. So I'll say first, that's our connection and relationship. And that was like 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I think. I
Wow.
think the memory passed across my Facebook. But also, um, mainly for me, I'm Nina Ellis Hervey, and I am a licensed clinical and school psychologist, nationally certified school psychologist. Like, did I say licensed specialist in school psychology, as well as a certified professional life coach? I'm in both Texas and Louisiana, licensed dually. I'm also a professor of a doctor in the doctoral program in psychology, and teach doctoral students that are going on to become private practitioners and many other things. And then I'm also by night, I say, a vlogger and blogger known as Beautiful Brown Baby Doll, which I'm dang near 40 years old, but people still run
And
with the
listen, it
name
works.
Beautiful Brown Baby Doll. So yes, and so I do a lot of other things, including mentoring through my mentorship membership program. I'm also a new wife, and my husband is here. So I am very happy to have him here and always supporting me. And also, I wanted to say hi to some of the young ladies, Tiandra, the Nisi Bird, Eloise, and I see some members, Marsha and Francesca, Karen, members of the mentorship membership. So thankful to have you all here. So I have a lot of lives that I live, and that's not even, I don't even think I mentioned everything, but that's most of it.
She's
Now
busy
you
and
asked,
she's amazing.
busy. I thank God for it. But I also wanted to talk about that hyper independence. I got excited too. I didn't even want to introduce myself. I wanted to go straight into it. Hyper independence is such a scary thing because, as you mentioned, so many times we hear I'm an independent woman and blah, blah, blah. Nothing's wrong with being independent. As you mentioned, you want people to have some independence and be able to survive without the sustenance of others and be able to figure things out on their own. However, hyperindependence, as you mentioned, usually comes about because of some traumatic experience, whether directly experienced or passed down in experience. Unfortunately, a lot of women of color, and then I can speak also to Black women, have become very hyper independent because there has often been a lack of stable relationships, whether they be familial or romantic, where they have been fruitful in being able to depend on someone outside of themselves. So this hyper independence usually doesn't come from nowhere. So we have to
Right.
acknowledge there. It usually comes from a series of events where the person has been let down. They couldn't trust that other people could do for them what they could do for themselves. So they've learned to fall back on themselves so that they don't have to continually go through. They're avoiding stress by being stressed in another way, right? So um, I can be stressed knowing that I can handle it, even though I might have to stay up all night getting it done. I know it'll get done, as opposed to trusting someone and then finding out they didn't do it all together. So hyper independence is usually a response to that. It's like a preventative measure, if you
Okay.
will, for some people. And then it ends up backfiring because you end up tired, you end up bitter, you end up upset, you end up feeling again like you can't trust anyone and you're upset with yourself for that. So you don't know how to tell who you can trust and who you can't. So it leads to a lack of being able to discern who you can trust, and who is worthy of your trust, and also being able to allow yourself to fail when it doesn't work out. So, understanding that regardless as to whether or not you always could trust people or not, you're going to run into situations where you can't. And so, hyper independence is usually begat from that mindset. And when we can look at it that way,
Hmm.
it's easier to understand where a person might be coming from when they're like that. And I think that we see that a lot in, unfortunately, I hate to always bring up the dating world, but we know the whole independent woman and all of that comes up
Yeah.
there. And I think what you're actually seeing is hyper independence,
Yeah.
because so many young women have been let down, and I know the main audience is women here, so
Yeah.
I'm going to mention women. So many young women have been let down in various ways by people they thought they could trust, by people they thought had their back. But then when it was time to show up, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, therefore, in order to protect and cover from that, they become the complete opposite. They're going to be the ones to get it done. They're going to be the ones to show up. They're going to be the ones to fix everything, even if it's at their own detriment.
Yeah. And you bring up the relationship piece. We see that, in relationships. And again, that fear of and it's so funny that earlier today I did a presentation on overcoming the fear of failure. And when you look at that as it relates to hyper independence, it's almost this: I don't want to trust someone enough to lean on someone, be that in a relationship, be that bringing people into your business as an entrepreneur. This shows up in a lot of areas in our lives. Um, if you if you say to yourself, if I can be independent enough, that's what I'm priding myself on, then if something fails, this fear of failure to me is a catalyst to make the hyper independent even worse,
Yeah.
because you're like, I can't trust anybody. And maybe that came from a past horrible relationship. This is what I was saying in my presentation earlier today, that I don't believe there's a wasted experience in our lives.
Mm-mm.
There are no wasted
Absolutely.
experiences. So if you look at it from the perspective of, okay, I was in a bad relationship, I trusted someone, I gave them my authentic self, and that didn't work out. So now I've got to be superwoman because I can't ever trust anyone again. Instead of the main thing I want women to hear today is nothing wrong with being independent. If you're hyper independent, I want you to identify the trauma that caused that and heal from the trauma.
Right. Right.
Heal from the trauma, because your best next relationship, the best people you need to work in your business,
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
you are of the mindset that I don't need anyone, then you're not going to get what you need in your relationship, in your business. I mean, you and I have talked about this in business, and it so many crazy ass people in the space of entrepreneurship, right? You feel like
Mhm.
I tried one, that didn't work. I tried another one. Okay, I just need to do it all myself. You cannot achieve greatness as one person. It has
Mm-mm.
never happened. You are not going to be the person to break that rule. So let's peg over to relationships, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship,
No,
right?
no,
It could be a
absolutely.
just a family relationship, just a friend
Hmm.
relationship. Um, and how have you seen that show up in ways? She already smiling. How have you seen that show up in things in your life?
Um, for me, I can say it's shown up several times
Okay.
because unfortunately, I was kind of blessed with both the discernment to know when something's going to fail, but also the desire to fix it before it can happen.
Mm, okay.
Um, I usually knew in situations, familial, romantic, business, when it wasn't quite going
Right.
right and it was going to combust at some
Okay.
point. And so then I would go into overdrive trying to fix it and fix it myself.
Okay.
Not that I took pride in fixing it myself, but because I was trying to avoid that failure. So sometimes it emerges in that way because some of us do have discernment. We do
Mhm.
know this ain't gonna be good. I already
Right.
know this is headed the wrong way. But maybe I can do this, this, and this, and it'll fix it. And so I've seen it pop up that way. What I've also seen is um, due to uh, I want to say being pretty independent too when it came to going off to school and being able to take care of myself. I didn't realize until I got off to graduate school, even undergrad, that it was not normal to be a person who, and this is going to sound bad when I say it, but worked so much and did so much and didn't get a lot of support or couldn't get a lot of support from family or, others around like some of my peers. Because when I went to school, I was the only one that looked like me in my
Okay.
cohort. And a lot of people's parents had money. They came from money. They came for people that already had doctorates and JDs and, businesses that were booming, even if they didn't have quote unquote degrees or things of that sort. So their kids were taken care of. These students that were in school with me were driving on the campus with BMWs,
Right.
Lexuses, and everything else before we were even doctors.
Right.
So for me, I worked and probably did overdrive, because I can remember one of those years making thousands of dollars, and even my professors being like, how? Why are you doing this? And it was like, because I can't depend on anyone. I can't. I don't know what it feels like to be like, oh, I can't pay my rent this month. Somebody else gonna pay it for me.
Right. So this
Oh,
topic touches home, I think, for all of us, for sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you with your academia
Mhm.
trajectory and all of that, like, and I remember when I was still in the corporate space, and I started to see that I was kind of like on this grind, like what why?
Consistent. Just
And
running.
I remember part of that was kind of this imposter syndrome of, if
Mhm.
I don't do it, something's gonna fall apart. Something's gonna fall off
Absolutely.
the plate. Somebody's gonna figure out that I'm not smart. Now I got to make
Absolutely.
millions of dollars for this company every year, but somebody's gonna figure out that I'm not really great at trading. That was almost me giving a justification to stay hyper independent in my job.
Mhm.
Justify
Mhm.
the overworking, overdoing, thinking about it when I'm at home, not ever letting myself off the hook. And that became crazy how this ties in the beginning of my Maven journey of, you
Mm.
gotta find some balance. This is not sustainable to keep going on and on and on. And that was Francesca has a question that I want you to see, Nina.
Oof, I saw that. And I also saw something that Sean said too, but I'm gonna
Yes.
answer this to what Francesca has said because that's a good one. Francesca said, "Did you also feel you were the best person because you're a psychologist?"
Uh-huh.
And Francesca, I wish that could be true. I also speak with my husband about this a lot. A lot of that began before I was, so it's hard to say that that was a. Do I think that it probably helped me become more aware of it after becoming a psychologist? Absolutely. Um, but I think I was like this before. Um, I think though becoming a psychologist helped me to identify that, which is what I was about to say, because you talked about the beginning of your Maven journey and going back to what Francesca has asked. I think for me, my mind started to shift after I had finished my degree and I was going into the workforce and I was doing all this and that. I was like, I don't want to be a work mule. I just don't want to do it. Like, I mean, and so to every degree of the word professor, I lean into being a professor. Yes, I'm a psychologist, but as a professor, y'all best believe I take every liberty to be as flexible as possible. I don't go on campus when I don't have to be there. I I don't work when I don't need to.
Right.
I do what I need to do in order to be rested and not as challenged and focus on the things I actually enjoy. So I will say being a psychologist actually heightened my ability to realize that trauma response wasn't as healthy um, as I thought that work
Okay.
effort was. As Sean mentioned, interdependent.
Mm-hmm.
So we always talk about the difference between being independent, dependent, and interdependent. Because one of our favorite people, Tony Gaskins, is always talking about interdependence and how when you come together as one, and I think this works for business, it works for
Right.
relationships, it works for families. You find interdependence, which is where you are independent, the other person is independent, but y'all know how to come together and work on each other's strengths and filling in where the other is weak in order to accomplish certain goals so that one doesn't feel more outworked than the other.
Yeah. And that's the harmony of a good relationship, right?
Mhm.
Um, that whole concept that it's going to be 50-50 is quite foolishness. It's quite foolishness
Hello.
because you think about different seasons in life. Um, sometimes my husband is leading, he's ahead of the curve on something. Sometimes that's me, but the interdependent still comes back to we are one. And so I don't have this pressure that I feel like I need to be hyper independent. Now,
Mm.
listen, for me, my husband would not have been attracted to me had I not been a independent person. That's not
Hello.
his jelly, okay?
Hello.
But he was not looking for me to be hyper independent, to say, well, I got it all. I don't need you. You're just my partner, but I don't need you. Nobody wants to be in a healthy relationship from that perspective, because that, again, what we doing? We in a relationship, we're married, but you, again, the trauma. And again, I think I'm seeing some of the women in the chat with the wow and the yup, like we have come along with this term of being independent, and it's, the song and the soundtracks and all wonderful stuff. But when you go past balance and become hyper independent, listen, it shows up in, again, every area: your relationships, your
Mhm.
connections to other people. If you're in business as an entrepreneur, if you're in the corporate space, if you're in academia, that that type of trauma response is going to keep showing up, because what happens is it starts to feel safe. Like, I've gotten success from this. I remember when I first started identifying this in myself, I was arguing with myself against the change because I'm like, I have created success this way.
Mhm. Mhm.
Why would I not do this? But again, it's the result of how you're not going to be able to maintain this forever. Uh, Tiandra, I see your question, and we're going to come back to that because we're definitely going to talk about finding that balance.
Mhm.
Nina, let's switch a little bit more and talk about. We talked about it, relationship wise. Let's talk about it a little bit from career wise, and again, that could be professional, academia, entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
How does this hyper independence show up? And are people, I'm sure as a psychologist, you've pointed this out to people in a way. Are people, is this something people are more easily able to digest? Because again, the word dependent is in there. So they feel like this can't be a negative thing. This has to be positive.
Um, I think it ebbs and flows and it comes and it goes. When I say that, I mean, depending on the state of the world and depending on what social media says and depending on the day, you have people that realize things in their own time. So sometimes when you first present it to someone,
Hmm.
anything that talks about, have you ever thought about why you feel the need to handle everything or
Yeah.
be everything? The first thing that people do is get offended or offensive,
Yeah.
and usually that's because it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
They get, well, I should say they get defend they get defensive, yeah. um but I guess offensive too. They tend to want to argue the point, and just like I mentioned to you, I have to be there for myself, I have to do this and that. If I don't do it, nobody will. But usually even in that breakdown, they find that some of that stuff they don't have to do, they took it on because they believed they had to. And not only that, they took it on because people continue to go with their game. If people see they can continue to use you for everything, of course they're gonna keep using you for everything.
Yeah.
And you're gonna continue to do that too. And that's, you mentioned the work world, that's exactly what happens. So you come in and you're trying to take on everything so you can show and prove and you can be this and be that and do this and do that. And unfortunately, especially for women of color, again bringing it into Black women, I think a lot of times that thought of overperformance, like I have to be 10 times better, I have
Yeah.
to be 10 times as better than this person and that person, it tends to kick in. And so what we find is that we're the one then
Mhm.
cracking the whip, if you will, on
Okay.
ourselves. And so when you present that to someone, that's often a harsh truth and reality that they're not ready to digest. But usually if you break it down in a way that kind of gives examples like I just did, they're like, you
Hmm.
know what, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And they
And
realize there are some things they can take away.
yeah, and the some of the results of that hyper independence, you mentioned this earlier, is bitterness. You have
Hmm.
worked yourself to the bone on every level emotionally. If you're involved in church, you got to be the one that's over every ministry. That you are emotionally exhausted, which leads
Absolutely.
to bitterness. And again, taking ownership for our own stuff at the end of the day, that's where it has to come from. We have one question here from Karen that I want you to,
Ooh.
can you ladies touch on the silent competition among Black women? I find it interesting. um I'm going to let you share your thoughts on that. Crack the whip on it. You saw me reel that thought in, like, oop, let's sew that back, let's sew that back.
Well, strangely enough, and I hope it's okay to be this frank, Myra.
Yes, please.
When Myra came into my life,
Oh wait, I didn't know you was gonna be frank about me. Hold on. No, I'm
no, no,
teasing.
no.
I'm teasing.
Well, it was because you actually experienced me on the other hand of some of that.
Hmm.
And you were sitting there as people were trying to bait you into things. And we've seen this
Yeah.
together before. So
Yeah.
we've actually been in situations where this happens. So Karen, to your question of what about that? Oh, it happens all the time. And again, I think it's a byproduct of the whole there can only be one syndrome. And so instead of celebrating our own uniqueness and what makes us different and what strengths we have and what weaknesses we have, as Lisa has said, sometimes there's a sign of insecurity. There becomes insecurity because it's been built in by the fact that someone has to stand out.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, naturally so, it becomes, well, you can't be the one, I gotta be the one. And there can't be both of us. Um,
When in
quickly, the way
reality,
that
that can be plenty.
there can be plenty. And the way that I've handled that in the past, and Myra being there for one of those experiences, I get quiet. Because here's the thing, I'm not about to battle with you.
Right.
Because if I battle with you and I say something, you gonna be hurt.
Right. That's what
Because
I
this
say. I don't.
mouth,
I try to keep the mouth because I don't want to put nobody in the fetal position in the corner. That's not the life I'm trying to live. So
we not
sometimes
gonna do
silence
that.
is because here's the thing
Silence.
about this talk
Hmm.
about trauma. Their response is not our responsibility. It's not my or Nina's or yours, ladies' responsibility when someone has been living this hyper independent lifestyle, thinking that that's the thing they are the jelly. When you see that, okay,
Okay.
that's a
Or,
whole thing
I'm
to
not
go
going to
through.
go back and battle and beat my chest because I do believe, see, here's some things that's probably going to make some people upset.
Speak
This
to
is
us,
where I
Nina.
do believe in some things that happen more naturally for men and for women. I don't like to cast people into groups. I don't. I do believe
Hmm.
there's a lot of crossover between men and women, but I believe men beat their chest about things like that.
Yeah,
I don't. If you want to battle, my thing is I'm going to show you what I'm going to do anyway. So you can be here and watch me talking until I'm blue in the face or arguing with you about who's better is not going to change anything for
right.
either of us. In fact, it makes us look worse.
Yeah,
So therefore, I usually try to, in those situations, allow people their space and just keep quiet. And usually they'll go. I mean, they'll go. They'll go by what you're showing them.
Lisa said, "Watch me work,"
Absolutely. Watch me work.
and I
Absolutely.
think that's a good lesson learned, right? As
Hmm.
we grow and mature, we don't have to respond to everything. Everything doesn't deserve our response. It's just not worthy of it. That's why it used to just be okay. I have two words. Oh, okay.
And mine is thank you. I
Yeah,
say
thank
thank
you.
you quite a bit. Me and my husband talk about this a lot, is that
Hmm.
everything about the not having a response for everything, because hyper independent people that are operating from a place of insecurity, there's usually that need to respond to
Mm,
everything,
hmm.
to prove everything wrong or prove everything to be within their own set or ideals. And so usually when you become more comfortable in yourself and that hyper independence is peeled away, you feel no need to continue with that.
Yeah. And again, when I have to give the oh okay, I don't feel like I've lost anything because I didn't engage it, battle it, say whatever. Because again, normally those type of situations, that response that person gave, there's something much deeper going on there.
Right.
And Nina, I've said to you before when we're talking about situations, I'm like, they said that, but this is what I see that's under that. And
Hmm.
until that person is ready to look at their own stuff, right? We are not responsible. This is something, again, focusing on our audience as Black women, sisters, we are not responsible to teach everyone. That whole each one teach one, very good. But everybody is not my assignment. Not everybody, because then I'm going to run out of juice. I'm going to run out of what I need for my own self care and for those that are assigned to me. So the thought of sitting with your own stuff, rolling back to Is this a trauma response I'm giving? And you identifying that for yourself and working on that. Let's see what Miss Karen has here. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss these questions. I find myself redirecting myself and not even mentioning it, making sure interactions become limited, and then on an as needed basis. Keyword, Karen, as needed basis. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, because
Absolutely.
yeah, that definitely goes in line with everybody doesn't deserve a response. And again, when people are reacting from a trauma space, um, that's not mine to fix. Unlike Nina, as a doctor, it's like, I'm not, that's not my area. I can refer you to somebody, but that's not my area. And, you know, taking up in this season of looking at my own self has been hard. Listen, T. Andre Miss Stone, not heartbreaking, reality. That's the only way we
Yeah.
grow. That's the only way we grow. Nina and I are sitting here sharing these things with you because we're always in it, but we've looked at the self-examination pieces.
Hmm.
So I want you, when I see you type heartbreaking, it feels like a negative perspective on it. I want you to have a positive perspective on your self examination, that this is your growing season. Because when we start, my maven quote for doing the inside work is the work is not skippable.
Oof.
That's the inside part. Listen, it's not cute. You would do the ugly tears. People in
And
your
I'm
life,
gonna take it to another organ.
yeah,
Take it to another organ instead of heartbreaking. Make it eye opening.
eye opening. She said another organ. Listen, I love that. Yeah,
Not
you're in a
heartbreaking. Eye opening.
growing season, because anytime we start to look inward and do our own work on our own selves, you've got to grow. You've got
Yeah.
to grow. Like that's a good thing, because as you get older, you want to be getting better. Period.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
an important thing. Um, she said that's the only way we grow. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Lisa says,
Yeah.
I am learning that value is not tied to what I do. Lisa, listen, you done spoke a whole word. My value is
Lisa does speak a
intrinsically,
word.
yes,
Absolutely.
I am valuable because I am me. Listen, girl, if we could pass the offering plate right now, Lisa, we would. That makes absolute sense because, and again, speaking for myself, when I was still in corporate, I felt for so many years that my value came from how good of work how well I performed.
Hmm.
That's a growth thing. I think that's almost something we naturally grow up with because, as you're young, people like you got to go to school and you got to get a good job. It's all centered around income and money. Nobody's ever saying, as a child, when you grow up, you got to protect your peace. You got to maintain your joy. It's all about how are you performing. And so when we get to a certain
Oof.
age and start realizing, okay, well, now hold up. That money in the bank that I earn won't give me peace. It won't give me joy. There's something deeper that I've got to work on here. So, Lisa, you hit the nail on the head that our value is not what we do, it's who we are as a person. What are
Hmm.
how are we showing up in the earth? That's one of the most valuable things we can do. Nina, what do you have to add on that?
I think y'all said it all. I absolutely. I think a lot of times when I talk about self worth, even I have had to in my own walk help people to separate that my self worth didn't come from what I became.
Okay.
That's not where self worth came from. It comes from the journeys in between. In fact, I'd like to believe that all the failures is what gave me my personality, what gave me my growth points, what gave me my joy, what gave me my comfort in self. Because even I had to learn that the hard way. All the
Mhm.
accolades, all the awards, all the greatness, that didn't ever make me happy. What made me happy was the humility I learned, the ability to sustain certain things that I was able to do. Also, just some of the things I had to learn in between, and some of the people that I met on the way that gave me valuable information that didn't even know me, but were able to add to some of the thoughts that I had. So, with what Lisa said, oftentimes I think we haven't learned how to separate our value and worth from earthly things, or things that can be stripped from us, or
Mhm.
things that have only been given to us, even temporarily. And so, a lot of times, self worth has to be built. And when you have hyper independence, taking it back to that place, you haven't learned that yet.
Yeah.
You still haven't learned to sit in the discomfort and the uncomfortableness of being you.
Yeah.
And when I say uncomfortable, when you first realize who you are, it's just like going on a date. I'm just gonna take it back. It's like going on a date. That first time is very uncomfortable, awkward, and weird. When
Right.
I first had to sit by myself and not be a busybody, I was like, oh my God, you be making noises. You looking at IDTV all day. You really
Yeah.
a couch potato, but you work out, but you really just kind of lazy sometimes. And when I realized that, I was like, I like that about myself.
Yeah.
I'm kind of cool. But
Yeah.
I had to sit through the uncomfortable points. And a lot of times when we haven't, then there's that need to keep pushing until we get to some place that we don't even realize doesn't exist.
Yeah. We don't even know where that place is. It's like you're running toward a goal, but you don't know where the finish line is,
Hmm.
because it's just, if I slow down, and this was, I remember literally thinking this, if I slow down, something's going to fall apart.
Yep.
What's going to fall apart? I don't know. Just something. It's this thought of, I must keep going. And one of the ladies earlier, Nina, this crazy that we have already been on here for 40 minutes.
I know, right?
We're going to wrap up in a few minutes, but let's talk a little bit about, one of my favorite words about balance. I call it a balance rhythm for those of you that are new and first time hearing me talk about it. And really, I define a balance rhythm as creating success. Insert success is what you define for yourself,
Hmm.
without sacrificing your relationships, your health, or your mental sanity. Because, and I can tell your hyper independence is a not part of your ultimate success.
Mm.
You can't build it on your own. And so finding that balance for me really started with a spiritual journey of sitting with myself and finding out, who is Myra? She was already a wife, she was already a mother.
Hmm.
Those are some things I do. But who am I all by myself? Who am I? And I remember thinking that my tear ducts were broken for a year because I felt like I cried a whole year. For one, trying to figure it out, and two, realizing what I was seeing was going to need a whole lot of damn work, because I had to come off of the hamster wheel of go, 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 go. That wasn't going to be sustainable, especially the older I got. It wasn't going to be sustainable. So for me, that balance doesn't look like, 50% here, 50% there. Is being able to bring my whole self to my husband when I'm interacting with him, being able to bring my whole self to my children when they were still here needing me, being able to bring my whole self to my business. It's not this, I'm gonna give 20% here, 20% here, 20% here. It's being able to show up whole to whatever it is I'm engaging in for that moment, that day, whatever it is. That's the balance I'm continuing to work toward. I think that's probably a lifelong journey. But it's the, I don't have to be this hyper independent person for, as Lisa said, to have my value.
Hmm.
I don't have to do it all by myself. First of all, that's crazy. And trust me, there's no joy with that, because
None.
we're going to run out of juice. So, from your perspective, what is that? You've gone undergrad, grad school, all these accolades, huge influencer, now a newlywed wife, more of the journey to come. What does that balance look like for you as you were working your way away from hyper independence?
I think learning to argue with myself, when I say argue with myself, tell myself things will be okay, even if something fails, I'll
Mhm.
figure it out. Also, I must say that there has been a lot of quick growth in becoming a new wife too, because I have a hell of a helpful husband.
Mhm.
So I have had to learn to be like, oh, yep, nope, you're right. I don't want to do
Right.
it. You can have it. You can have it. But before even that, I learned my close friendships and people that I could ask to do things that
Mhm.
would do things. And now, even in expanding in the business, learning how to, hey, I'm working with you on this and knowing that it'll get done,
Right.
and not feeling like, oh, well, if I'm not looking and if I'm not checking on it and I'm not, and if it didn't get done, we'll just recalibrate and get it done a different way.
Yeah.
I'm learning
Let
that.
me insert this
Hmm.
with us. I think you said having met 4 or 5 years ago. I think one
Hmm.
of the things that was how you talk about things being a blessing and a curse. When I first met you, you're such a gracious person. You give grace. You give a lot of grace to people. And me immediately seeing a couple of things. One, some people are trying to take advantage of this. We about to shut that down. Um, and two, um, your business and what you envision for your business when you and I first started talking business strategy was bigger than just you.
Hmm.
And I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm gonna have to keep pulling on her a little bit to get her. It's not that you didn't want to trust people. It's just, well, I can do it. I can stay up all night. No, no, I don't want you to stay up all night. But I
We
say that
want you
to
to
say
sleep.
to the women that are on here watching and listening, if you have been hyper independent and you
Hmm.
have been that way for a good majority of your life, you are going to need some support
Yes.
in untangling that web. And
Hmm.
make sure you have good, supportive people in your life that one can keep reminding you. Because when we've gotten comfortable with a thing and gotten success from a thing, although it might not be the best for us, when we've gotten success from a thing, when things get tight,
Want to keep it.
we fall back to what's worked. And being hyper independent, we've gotten some success from that. So having people in your corner that can gently remind you of, no, we still need to find an assistant for
Mhm.
that. No, we need another person to do that. Because again, the growth and the opportunity, the ability, that's a whole nother podcast on capabilities versus abilities. We're not gonna talk about that today. Just
Mhm.
because you can do it
Doesn't mean you should.
doesn't mean that you should.
And I'll say therapy also helped to bring that home. My
Hmm.
therapist is, you know, again, finding a therapist that works for you.
Hmm.
My therapist is a older white woman from New Orleans, and she don't play, and
Yeah.
she's very honest. Um, and she's had, similar life to me. And so some of the she has almost like a reality based therapy approach. And I know for me, sometimes I've said things out loud, like, if I don't do it, this won't happen, blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen if it doesn't happen like that? And it really brings things home because, like you said, we've imagined what failure is like, just like we've imagined what success is like. And
Hmm.
we haven't considered the truth behind either.
Yeah.
And if one is delayed, how does that really affect us? And if something never happens, how does that affect us? So I will say therapy has really allowed me that space to be clear on that and how it works within me too.
I love it. Yeah, and listen, therapy, I say therapy and Jesus go together. They go together. The old school notion that you just need Jesus in a prayer, it's inaccurate. Sometimes you need a whole therapist.
Jesus even sought counsel.
Okay,
So let's be,
it's wise.
Jesus knows everything. The person that knows everything sought from people who didn't know everything.
Right. I
So
love it. So, Nina, tell us, do you have anything coming up that you want to share, or share with the ladies about your membership and all of the amazing stuff? Y'all definitely go follow her on YouTube. She's consistent with the great info and content weekly over on her YouTube channel. So beautiful brown baby doll. Over type in Dr. Nina. You will for sure find her over there on the YouTube.
yes, right now it's so many things down the pipeline. So the mentorship membership is we've had quiet soft launches on that, but soon we will be amping up on that as I just got a wonderful new assistant. Praise God.
Yay!
A lot of the members are here. I see Lisa, I see Francesca, I see
Yes.
Marsha, Marsha. See some wonderful people here, Karen as well. Um, so there's a lot that's going to start amping up with that. So if you're interested, please come on over to the website, drninellishervey.com/membership to learn more. Also, there will be my podcast will be rebooting. So that's coming back up. And Sean Harness and I, my husband, we are releasing a podcast here in probably the next month or so.
What's
So
going to be the name of the Harnesses
it's
podcast?
Harness Your Life
Harness Your
is the
Life.
name
Listen,
of the podcast.
I love it.
Harness Your Life. So we're going to be looking at everything from spiritual, mental, physical, emotional health, as well as dating and love and life and beauty and everything. We're just going to be talking about all kinds of realness. So a lot of things are unfolding there. There will be some other things, but I'm definitely going to keep y'all updated and in the works. As I'm in the works of those things. So if you're looking for just a new support right now, come on over to the website and get in on my free 8-day supernatural video program, which is free when you sign up on my website, drninellishervey.com, which is also going to let you into the things that I'm doing. We have usually a bi-weekly email and things like that to keep you updated. So come on over. We'd love to have you.
I love it. I love it. Listen, y'all, it has been my absolute pleasure to have Dr. Nina. We finally, after a while, got on a platform and shared our conversations that we have behind the
Yes.
scenes with y'all. And thank y'all so much for joining. Listen, for those that missed us live, the replay will be on my YouTube channel. I'll send it to Dr. Nina. It'll be on her channel as well. If you want to get any information about my membership, you can hop over to maven-nation.mm.co. If you're in Houston, Jesus, that's tomorrow. We are
Mm-hmm.
doing a free in-person accountability day. So if you're a female entrepreneur, text the word sisterhood to 713-528-8071, and we'll give you all the information that you need. The accountability day, that's all about bringing what you need and getting the work done. We can procrastinate and have fear and all these other things, but accountability day is all about working. So thank y'all so much for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Nina, for hopping out. I know you were having tech issues today, but listen, we made it happen. One more day
We
closer
did.
to the weekend.
We did.
Slow it down just a little bit. Just a
That's a
little
part
bit.
of hyper independence, realizing my husband said, just go ahead, let's get you up to Panera. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out.
You're
So
like,
we
okay, okay.
good.
Shout out to Mr. Sean Harness for making it happen.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good day. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you, Dr. Nina.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.